Good morning.
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 Morning. Good to see you bright and early on this Monday morning. Good morning. Ready to Neuroccino, I guess. So, welcome to Neuroccino on this 24th of November, I believe. Two announcements before we get started. First off, Laura is currently defending her PhD, so we keep our fingers crossed it's clashing with Neuroccino. That's also why quite a few of us are in the other live stream. And the second announcement is that we have a CNS talk this week on Wednesday, 4 o'clock, by Amy Howard. So do join us in for that. I hope you have a ticket here. It's a slightly scared face
Wasn't
there.
for me. Yeah, it wasn't for me. I don't know.
Cool. Today we have Fernando, who is presenting on the lifespan tree for diagnostics of neurodegenerative diseases. Fernando, when you're ready, please reshare the link in the chat so everyone has it. Fantastic. And then take it away.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. 1 second. And I think we can all see the screen.
Yes,
Can you see it well?
yeah. At least on my screen, it's only a fraction of the screen, but it's fine, I guess. Yeah, that's getting better.
All right. Um, all right, so let's launch the Neuroccino for today. This weekend, I was diving into this paper, the lifespan tree of brain anatomy, uh, which is going to be trying to bring a new way of diagnosing motor and cognitive neurodegenerative diseases. Just as a spoiler, when I saw this figure over here, I found it interesting that they're trying to model these neurodegenerative diseases over time. Uh, but first of all, I'm gonna in introduce the paper a bit more in detail and walk you through the main ideas. Um, So first of all, they begin with an introduction about how the inaccurate diagnosis of neurodegenerative diseases is a bit limited nowadays. It is difficult to diagnose a neurodegenerative disease based on the different, how to say, biological markers. They give an exception of rare cases of Alzheimer's disease where the like pathophysiological biomarkers are available, but for the rest, for many of the other diseases, it is not that easy to diagnose. And MRI provides a detailed representation of the brain. We can look at the structure of this pathological brain phenotypes and be able to help the diagnosis. So there's something to MRI. It also They also highlight that AI is also helping as with diagnosis, with classification AI tools. So there's a synergy between the MRI and AI that holds a significant value for this diagnosis. Furthermore, if we look into AI measures, they make a case of the two different. Well, oh yeah, they make a distinction. They say, okay, right now we have binary classification tasks. So these machine learning algorithms that make binary classification seem a bit how do I say? They're not really useful for clinicians because they offer limited information. They help with classifying. They may point out which disease it may be, but a clinician cannot work much with it. So it may be the case that multi-class classification can help a bit further than that. And again, with a similar distinction, support vector machines are a binary classification task. They're trying to draw a line between what case is normal, what case is disease. And they with this paper they're proposing an alternative to the support vector machines, which is their approach. The authors, yeah, Coupé and also We'll see the other one, Manjon, are cited a lot within the paper, which I found interesting. Uh, we'll mention a bit more about that afterwards. So, right, how do we build a model like the one they're trying to bring, this lifespan tree of brain anatomy? So if we go a bit more into the methods, they use a training data set of 37,000 MRIs. Um, they use this from different data sets from many different centers. And if we want to understand a bit better, they have this table over here. These are the labels of the different diseases that they have. And yeah, the different data points, we see that for cognitively normal, they have the most data points. They have basically um, 36,000, well, 36,500 out of 37,500. Um, and the other thousand are composed of these other diseases. This is for the training data set. For the testing data set, they produced their own external and independent database with which they will validate the model. Okay, so now we understand that this data that they have, it's very varied and also coming from different centers. So there may be a challenge coming here, which is there's the different scanning, different maybe different scanning protocols, different scanners, and so the data is going to have an intrinsic variation per se. So that's a challenge that the authors also address here in the next part. So MRI preprocessing. One of the authors um, seemed to have already developed for quite a long time this all the how to say all the tools that they're using for this paper. We can see in red labeled authors from this paper have been bringing forward some of the tools that they're using. So even starting with in 2010, there's this image denoising that they're doing in their own way. This assembly net, it's a tool for segmentation that the authors have developed themselves as an alternative, for example, to FreeSurfer, which is normally used nowadays. This is a volumetric approach. And something that they do that's interesting are addressing this challenge of many data points coming from many different centers. They do this standardization step to ensure consistency in image intensity. Right, and after we have this data preprocessed, how do we further get the ingredients together to build this tree, this tree that they propose? They have for the initial segmentation, they have 250 deep learning models. So they train 250 separate models to be able to recognize each of the segments of the brain more in detail instead of having one single model that tries to do all the segmentations in one go. Apparently, this works better, also by the same author of the paper. This is based on manual segmentations from AMGH Center for Morphometric Analysis. This is in Boston, I think Harvard. And they incorporate these manual segmentations, which are reliable into their model. They did end up with 124 structures and not 132 because white matter structures are less sensitive to the neurodegenerative process. So they're apparently worse at being indicative for these neurodegenerative diseases. Mm. And finally, they do a quality control. They also normalize volumes taking into account the sex differences, as addressed by one of the authors as well. And right, then we get to the volumes. So we have done the segmentation based on the volumes as specified in the methods until now. And I think now we can jump into figure one to keep understanding what the methods are doing. So what they incorporate is a polynomial model for each of the brain areas across the different ages in years, also for each of the pathologies. So imagine we have Alzheimer's disease and we have many cases of Alzheimer's disease with different ages. If we put all the volumes of the left amygdala for Alzheimer's disease cases across all these time points that we have in ages, we can then fit a model to all these time points in volume and end up with different volumes of the amygdala across the lifespan in the different diseases that we have here. So Alzheimer's disease, semantic dementia, and many others, as compared to cognitively normal, which is the CN. Now that we have all these volumes for all these brain areas, we can then put it all together and cluster each time point. So at each age, they do a UMAP. So the different different phenotypes or expressions of the disease can be clustered. But this would be very unstable if they didn't do a synthetic generation of data, which is basically this kind of cloud that we see around these trajectories of time. So we can see that each of the diseases seem to progress differently across age. And the cloud that we see around the line that they have kind of modeled is a synthetic generation of data. So basically a normal distribution that kind of helps expand or stabilize the data to help the UMAP. To help the UMAP that they're using. What they end up with is this 3D lifespan tree. We can see that they make a cut in at 80 years old, and we see this purple dot that would be a subject. So a new subject. They want to see where a new subject falls into their tree. So they will project this data after segmenting it into the UMAP. And we can see that the subject, if we cut the tree at 80 years, this is the 2D cut. And we see that the subject falls here, somehow close to cognitively normal, somehow close to Alzheimer's disease, Lewy body, dementia. And we see the scores here on the right. Can you see the full screen, by the way? Yeah, because I see your faces on my right. So, and the scores are basically a percentage. What is the probability that this patient may have for each disease? Right? Because the phenotypes are not necessarily like the expressions of this disease sometimes are a bit mixed. So it seems to be a bit informative. Right. That's only figure one. If we go further to figure two, what they basically do in this paper is here is the tree that they built for cognitive. It's a cognitive tree, but they also made another tree which is motor tree. So motor dementia versus motor deterioration versus cognitive deterioration. So this is the first one. And they basically do the same analysis. So the next set of figures that we'll see for the cognitive will be the same for motor afterwards. So we see this tree that they have done. And we see that the different dots that we see in the tree um, are basically from the test data set. These are the different pathways for the different diseases. So as they progress, they seem to diverge a bit more. And they show the cut at the age 60 with the different data points of the test data set from 58 to 62 years old. So it seems this is just to visually show how accurate or not this may be on visual terms. So for the green, it seems like the green points kind of fall close to their model trajectory, although some green points seems to still be scattered, Alzheimer's disease in blue. This is just the visual representation, because then they also show the table 2, where they validate the lifespan tree as compared to SVM, which is the alternative machine learning classification model. They have top 1 on the first set, then the first kind of row. On the second one, they have top 2. What does this mean? That this is like if we take into account the second best guess from the machine learning algorithm, what is the percentage of accuracy for the different diseases? And when compared to the support vector machine, lifespan tree seems to perform very comparably. Seems to perform as good. I don't think there's too much to say here. Is red dots up and down seems to be better at first on the first guess of the machine learning algorithm. But then as we get the second best guess, seems to even out. Nothing really comparably better. And then another further validation is this one. So it's basically showing 3 different metrics. So the back is the balanced accuracy. So overall, how well does the model diagnose patients versus normal controls? Then the sensitivity is how well the patients are correctly detected versus the specificity, which is how well the controls are detected. So we have how well the patients, how well the controls are detected, and the balance accuracy is taking into account both of them. Seems like the lifespan tree performs a bit better. Right. And the last figure for the cognitive tree, they're showing here visually how since what they were performing was a segmentation of structural MRI data. This is basically to look at the different volumes of the different brain areas and how they progress across life in different diseases. And what they try to show here is so distance to the cognitively normal model. So when compared to the cognitively normal participants, how well, no, how different does this disease progress? So these are different time points: 60 years, 70-year-old, 80, 90. And we see as it progresses, Alzheimer's disease seems to have more affected, more impact in the volume of these brain areas. The Lewy bodies also seems to have a pattern. PNFA, I forgot what PNFA means, progressive non-fluent aphasia. So they all seem to show a distinct pattern, and this is very nicely and visually shown here by the authors. And that's pretty much it for the cognitive tree. They have another one, which is the motor tree. They also do the same when presenting this different neurodegenerative diseases that influence motor abilities. So this is showing the same, the new, a bit for the other lifespan tree, the same as the previous one, with the different data points, the dots representing the testing data set. And for performance, we can see that it seems to perform significantly better than the support vector machine, which is great. But when we look at the balanced accuracy, like the overall performance doesn't seem to be significantly worse in this case because it's a bit below. So right, I think we got to the end of the paper. I think this paper proves the point that well, yeah, I'll just leave the screen here. They prove the point that this lifespan tree is comparable to the top performing machine learning algorithms that are used nowadays for classification of diseases. It performs comparatively well, but in comparison to this binary classification algorithms like the support vector machine, they offer a bit more. They are a bit more informative. They are a bit more interpretable, and when used by a physician, this can be more useful if a physician can be able to have a bit more information and not just a classification. So that they make a point here. This is an advantage not only in the classification point, but also in the interpretability. So not only the performance is comparable, but it's clinically meaningful. Yeah, any other points that may be interesting? They offer, since we see also in these figures, they offer biological how to say, biological relationships between the diseases. We can see that there's different patterns, different changes in volumes that are characteristic for each disease. But the paper still has limitations because they're using synthetic data still. Also, the data for cognitively normal participants is much higher than in the disease data. And they use cross-sectional data. That's the main limitations. But I think I'm gonna leave it here for the question round.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Interesting paper. There was a very active chat already going on. And I know that Leah wants to ask a question before she has to leave the train. So take it away.
Yeah, sorry, my routine. No, I really loved the fact that they introduced the age, kind of as a cut, in the also helping the UMAP interpretation because in neurodegeneration it's so important, I believe, the age stage. And also was surprised in one of the first three that the cognitive normal are close to Alzheimer, that is close also to DLB. So yeah, I was kind of like curious because you see the contours are also twisting towards the D. You know, with aging, also you see in the neuropathology that a lot of toxic proteins accumulate in the brain. So yeah, I was just curious to see this behavior, so that the contours are towards the AD through age. I don't know if they comment somehow on this.
Can you repeat the last part? So the contours of
See, like the controls are really close, like as a trajectory in the lifespan towards the DLB, Alzheimer. It's not on the other side. So, you know, like also with age, the hippocampal volumes can be like that late pathology. It's kind of a physical, physiological. So yeah, I was just curious about this.
Yeah, I think you make a nice point because it may be that the volumetric changes are not really that much different as compared to the controls, but there may be something also physiological to these diseases, like the accumulation of beta amyloid plaques may be influencing the functioning of these brain circuits without really changing the volume in the brain. Um, and then, yeah, still the brains would then progress in volume very similarly to what the controls would be. But yeah, then it may be that there's other metrics of the brain that are interesting to look into that are not these ones for these diseases.
You know, I was just curious because I'm studying Alzheimer and sometimes it's so challenging.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think I don't think I have read the authors mentioning much more about this in terms of the Alzheimer's disease or the mm, no, I don't think I've read much about this.
Okay, thank you so much. I see a lot of questions coming up.
It's also a nice match to your work, Leah, right? With the white matter compared to the cortical areas here.
Indeed, they don't address white matter. Sorry, there is a backup.
To be fair,
Yeah,
they had enough data to juggle already as it is.
yeah. I think
Ah,
maybe
okay.
in the discussion they also add for future directions, adding like incorporating multimodal data. But I guess that's maybe a future step that they want to
That's
take.
good because it's in my grant, so that's good.
Yeah.
And it all comes together. Right. Irene, you had a question.
Yes, thanks. So I have actually a follow-up question on Leah's one, also regarding age. I mean, I get why in this paper they took into account all the different ages, but it is also true that for some neurodegenerative diseases, the most like prototypical and aggressive forms of disease are like coming up at a younger age. So I don't know if they took into account, like they mentioned this, or they mentioned a distinction between, yeah, I mean, at the behavioral level, usually it's more aggressive when the onset age is younger.
Mm.
So yes, was just more of a comment on this.
No, I think they mentioned that there's somehow, well, there may be a bit of a limitation because they use a polynomial model to fit these trajectories. Also, they start adding the synthetic data at 40 years old because expression of the disease normally doesn't, they don't have many samples that are younger than that. Um, I don't think they address at all the age of onset of the disease and how this may affect the progression more or less.
Yes, so
That's a very interesting point, and I
yeah,
think yeah.
what I was thinking is, I mean, I get why they took into account age because, of course, like with normal aging, we have a change in the structures. But it's also true that possibly for the young onset diseases, uh, like both the behavioral and the brain structure is more degenerated, right? So maybe this doesn't match really well with how this tree is depicted.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I also don't know much about neurodegeneration, so maybe you have some more precise answers on that.
Um, yeah, I completely agree that there may be much more than to this, and I also think they're a bit they don't have that much data to be able to make conclusions into this, but who knows, maybe in the future they can dive into like zoom into each of these branches and actually see that depending on the age of onset there will be actually also different trajectories to see, and but they may also still fall into the same direction. Yeah, I'm not very deep know like how to say I don't know too much into depth about these degenerative diseases, so I wouldn't be able to dive much more and make a bigger conclusion. Thank you for your question.
And the next question. Are you here, Sherrod, or incognito? There you are.
I'm
Yes.
here. I'm here. I'm on my way to work, and I had all sorts of issues with the train. But can you hear me?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for your presentation, Fernando. Really like the paper. So I had a question that relates a bit to the two previous questions, which is also a bit of a clarification question, perhaps. But they use scans from these patients. It's like a single scan, right? It's not like a follow-up, or there's no longevity studies
No,
here.
sadly, it's cross-sectional, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm wondering, if it would add more value, of course, if you have follow-up scans and perhaps some of the people that are now in your cognitive control in their 50s, 60s actually develop Alzheimer's later on. Yeah, in which case I'm wondering if you can, with these tools, you could already have some kind of precursor or knowledge about this process. But I feel like now the way the data is arranged, that this is kind of, yeah, clouded, let's say. What is
Yeah.
your view?
And this follows great with the point from Irene, because if we know the age of onset and we also have more data points and trying to follow up on this progression of the disease, it can also inform better how to understand progression of these diseases with longitudinal data. I looked into this, and none of the data sets that they incorporate none of the databases that they incorporate use longitudinal data. It's mostly cross-sectional, sadly.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Final question from me, if I may. Where in the pipeline do they see this come in? Like, is this in the clinical workflow just before the clinician makes a decision, or in between, or does it run in parallel, or when is this supposed to be used and how in a clinical workflow?
Mm-hmm. So together with okay. If the patient has some kind of cognitive decline and they go to the physician and they go into the MRI scanner,
Well, do
if we get
they mention anywhere in the paper how this tool or these insights can be used in the clinic?
mm,
And at which point? Because a lot of the authors are clinicians, right? So they must have thought about this.
uh-huh.
I can, so if I can answer that. So if you go to the website Volbrain, the tool is already available. So you can download your MRI, put it in, and you will get your probability scores automatically. So it's not fast. I think you need 30 minutes to run, but you get it.
I mean, 30 minutes isn't too bad, right?
No, it's not bad. But it's a website where there is a system of queues. So if there is a lot of people doing the same thing, it will take longer. So it's not for clinical use, but it's already available.
Right. So for now, you could just plug it in as a parallel informative tool the second you have a scan, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much, Fernando. Exciting paper. Thanks for presenting it. As I mentioned, this week we have a CNS talk on Wednesday, 4 o'clock. Do join us for that one. And for those of you who want to join Laura's PhD, you can now fly over to the other Zoom meeting and keep your fingers crossed. For the rest of you, have an exciting week and see you for the next session. Bye.
Oh.
Bye.